Welcome everyone, and welcome to the short overview video of the Model Job Descriptions Project 2.0. We're very excited to share about the process and the final output of this project. And we're going to start with some introductions before we really dive into the background information and details. My name is Dani Zemmel. I'm the Training and Engagement Senior Manager with the Region 5 Public Health Training Center, and we have been very fortunate to be working through the Public Health Infrastructure Grant on this project. The project has really been led by our two public health consultants and subject matter experts. I'm going to briefly introduce them and then hand it over to them to do some deeper introductions of themselves. So we have Kimberly Green Warren. We also have Heather Krasna. Both of them have been working on this project with us over the past couple of months, really more than a couple of months. And we're really grateful for their time, their energy, and expertise, and for the information that they're going to be sharing with us today. So I think first I'll hand it over to Kimberly.
Great, thank you, Dani. My name is Kimberly Green Warren, as Dani mentioned, and I led the development of the MJDP 2.0 job description library set. I oversaw the review as well as the development of the updated job descriptions. And I'm also the founder of Smart Health Education, where it's a consulting practice dedicated to strengthening the public health workforce through curriculum development, meeting design and facilitation, and also workforce and capacity building support like this project. So I'll turn it over to Heather to introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. I'm Heather Krasna, and I am a public health workforce researcher and consultant, and the co-author of the book 101 Plus Careers in Public Health, a third edition. I do research on public health workforce issues, and I've been a consultant to a range of different public health associations and organizations. And in addition, I'm an adjunct faculty member at Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health and Associate Dean of Career and Professional Development at the Mailman School. And I do consulting through my private practice, which is Heather Krasna and Associates. And it's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm so honored to be here with both of you, and let's just go ahead and dive in. So first, our first question will go to Heather. Can you give us a little bit more background information about why did we even do this project? Why is this even needed? So specifically, what tools around recruitment are needed, and why did we update this resource?
Absolutely. So this project actually was started, I think, in 2022 approximately, and it was mostly done in response to the Public Health Infrastructure Grant, which provided new resources for local and state health departments around the United States. And one of the things that many folks had observed is that we do have 2,800 different local health departments, and then we have our 50 state health departments, our territorial, tribal, et cetera. And there's not necessarily a one-stop shopping resource to help these health departments with their recruitment. And there's many different things that are needed to do an effective job at recruiting the best candidates, getting a diverse candidate pool, to build the infrastructure of the public health workforce. And one of the really important core tools of recruitment is a solid job description. And what we were finding is that there were some health departments out there that basically didn't have a whole lot of resources to do a big, large-scale recruitment campaign in the past. Maybe their job descriptions had not been updated in a little while. Some of them maybe didn't have a lot of resources internally to do recruitment, and so they didn't have necessarily the tools to do recruitment marketing, which is one of the things that an organization has to do to get a good candidate pool. So what we had done a few years ago is to start looking at, we started with 24 specific job descriptions. And one of the parts of the project was to try to create, I would say, evidence-based job descriptions, meaning we were looking at multiple different job descriptions that had been used for each of these different occupations, looking at whether there was any credentialing for each of these, a certification or a body of knowledge, synthesizing a lot of information together, and then also field testing those job descriptions with people who actually worked in those jobs. And what we came up with was the Model Job Descriptions 1.0, And so that has been housed on the Region 5 Public Health Training Center website for several years. And I think last time we looked at it, at least 1,000 people had used those resources, which is great to see. But it had been a few years, and we know the public health workforce changes, and there's new updates, there's trends, there's new technologies, obviously. So there was a desire to update those job descriptions, make them a little bit more streamlined. There was also another organization that had started putting together sort of in parallel additional job descriptions, many jobs that hadn't been included the first time around. So our project was to expand the number of these different job descriptions and to make them, sort of more streamlined, more consistent, and do a reboot, a little refresh to make them a little bit easier to use. So that was the impetus of the 2.0 version, and we're hoping these can then be used by health departments, not just for recruitment, but also retention, training plans, creating career letters. There's many, many things you can use a good job description for. Kimberly, would you like to add any more?
Yeah, sure. I can build off of that if it's helpful, Donnie, to just talk about what the 2.0 version of the model job description project looks like.
Yeah, that would be great. I think, and thank you, Heather, for giving that background. Kimberly, definitely diving a little deeper, sharing about the outputs of this version 2.0, how many roles are in this updated set. And I think also just sharing a little bit about the process the second time around.
Yeah,
the development process, rather.
No, absolutely. So really building off of everything that Heather just mentioned around the need to streamline the new set of job descriptions, as well as just have a general refresh given the time between 2022 as well as 2025, if I'm also dating this video as well. But for the MGDP 2.0 set, it's an updated version, and we made several high-level updates. And so first, as you mentioned, Donnie, it includes 30 new unique public health roles, we're very excited to add 6 brand new roles to this full library of job descriptions that are available to the public. We also, in terms of process, we merged and also enhanced the original MGDP 1.0 set by integrating elements that were related and also developed by the Public Health Management Corporation, in addition to the great work that was done at the Region 5 Training Center. And so in that process, the updated set now includes a broad range of roles. So we have some frontline staff with a focus on the mid-level manager, but we also have supervisory positions as well. So it really covers a broad swath of jobs available. And then each job description is also refreshed. This is what we were mentioning earlier, making it a little bit more streamlined. So we have current qualifications as well as certifications, duties, and then key knowledge, skills, and abilities, and the day-to-day duties that are built into every single job description. And then lastly, but not least, we also made sure that the job postings in general use language that we know is important to help attract and get the attention of qualified and diverse candidates for all of these roles.
Thank you for sharing a little bit more of the detailed process and the outputs of version 2.0, Kimberly. That's really helpful. For those who are new to this project and to the outputs of this project, I think it would be really helpful to really have a clear understanding of the distinction between job descriptions and job postings. So for our next question, I'm going to direct this to you, Heather. Could you help us differentiate those two? What's the difference between a job description and a job posting?
Definitely. So the job posting, also known as a job advertisement, really it's a marketing document. And it's the kind of a document that you would see on a job board, could be Indeed.com, it could be used on a number of different websites. And it's a little shorter, sweeter, and more marketing focused, focusing maybe more on the benefits of why it's a great idea to come work at the local or the state health department, for instance. And it doesn't get as much into the depth of all of the different knowledge, skills, and abilities and so forth, but it's really meant to attract attention from candidates. And once someone sees that, when they actually go to apply, they're going to finally see the full job description, and that's where they're going to more likely submit their application or follow whatever the process is to submit their application for the position. So it's really going to be similar. It's not going to be so radically different, but the job posting is more just used as a marketing tool. It's commonly used in recruitment marketing and branding to grab people's attention. It's often just a little shorter and to the point, and it's meant to entice people to take action to apply. So that's basically how they're different. They're not supposed to be radically different from each other for the same job, but that's kind of the goal, is to get the word out and get people excited about coming to work at the health department.
Great. Thanks for helping to clarify that, Heather. That's really helpful. And I think with that background information, that distinction, that really helps us to segue to our next question. For Kimberly, can you share with us and go through the key elements of a job description? What are really those core things that are included in a job description?
Yes, thank you for asking. And that's something that we really focused on for the 2.0 set, really making sure that we have a streamlined template that we use to structure all of the job descriptions. And so you will notice when you look at the 2.0 set that all of the job descriptions are written in third person in a singular present tense, and includes 5 different sections. So we have the job title that is straightforward, that clearly states the name of the position. Yes, thank you for bringing it up. We also have the summary, which, as you can see here, that typically summarizes the core purpose of the position, as well as how the position contributes to the organization's mission and community and the department in general. Then we have the duties, and that includes the specific duties and responsibilities. So think of it as like those day-to-day tasks that are built into the position and those specific responsibilities. Then we have the qualifications and requirements. This details most times the minimum education or experience where appropriate. We also included licenses and certifications needed for various roles. And then where appropriate, we also tried to designate when certain qualifications were required versus preferred. But we know that is also going to be different on a organizational basis. And then with the required knowledge and skills and abilities, this is where we really broke it down very clearly. You'll see in the job descriptions between knowledge, skills, and abilities. And so with knowledge, this is more of the understanding of certain public health concepts and topics. You can think of skills as more of the technical or interpersonal proficiencies that are necessary to carry out that job. And then the abilities is more of like those natural developed capabilities that ultimately support the person's ability to perform that job. So that's how it was broken down, and those are all that were included in the updated 2.0 set for each of the job descriptions that you'll see in the new 2.0 set of the job descriptions.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And for those who are going to be using the job description, just want to give you a little peek. I'm going to scroll down here and show you a little preview. I think we'll just do the first page here of one of the roles. So for a grants manager, for example, just like Kimberly said, we're following the template structure. All of the roles will cover the same information, but starting with the summary, helpful to have that background, high-level information of the role. Then we go down to the duties, and for a lot of roles, Kimberly did a great job of breaking these down into relevant, distinct areas of that role. So we've got tracking and reporting, budget review, compliance, documentation, etc. Actually, I will go ahead and scroll to the next page here because I think that it's helpful to do a little overview. There's a lot of different areas, a lot of different duties for this specific role. And then once we get through all the duties, we have the qualification requirements. So for this particular role, this is a pretty succinct section, but it's helpful to have this information. And then we go into the required knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, and that is also separated out here. So as we're wrapping up and finalizing all of the job descriptions, they will be available on the Region 5 Public Health Training Center website, along with the accompanying job posting that's a little bit more short and sweet and helpful for recruiting those potential candidates to the agency. So thanks for that overview, Kimberly. I think we have just a couple more questions, a couple more things that we'd like to share with folks that are watching before we wrap up. I think for this next question here, I'm going to be directing this to Heather. So for folks out there, using this resource, or even if they're unable to use this resource as often as maybe ideally we would like, do you have any other tips for writing effective job descriptions? What are some helpful things for those in a hiring manager role or those working in HR within an agency? Helpful tips for writing effective job descriptions.
Definitely. So one thing just to say is that these are templates and they're meant to be adapted and customized to the needs of your specific organization. And every job is a little bit different. And so making sure that you adapt these for the level or the detailed sort of subject matter or program area, for example, could be important. And so one of the things that we discussed when creating these is, for example, there are many different kinds of public health nurse, for instance. You have public health nurses that do home visiting and work with, families, infants and children. There's also nurses that may be doing more contact tracing type work or working with folks that have tuberculosis and need their medication, things like that. So making sure that you include details about the program area could be important. Besides tailoring to the program area, you also have different levels. You many times you'll see in health departments, you may have, for example, epidemiologist level 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe even a supervisory epidemiologist or something. So making sure that you add additional responsibilities if the person is moving up, taking on more complicated work, and so forth. In terms of creating a job description, if you were really starting from scratch, of course, we want you to see if the templates help you first. But if you were doing something a little bit more from scratch, you might want to see what you already have on file. I find it helpful to look at other organizations' job descriptions and see what they've put into their description and see if it's appropriate for your own description. I also think it can be helpful to see if there are some standard sort of knowledge, skills, and abilities or sets of competencies for a specific occupation, which you don't see for every public health job, but you do see it for certain ones. So for example, epidemiologists do have competencies through the CSTE, Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists. Health educators certainly have lots of information that's related to their occupation through the CHES certification, Certified Health Education Specialist. So you might want to look at those because they often will spell out really nicely what is it that a health education specialist needs to know or needs to be competent in doing. And then you may also want to run it past people who already work in that job, especially if, let's say, you're in a larger health department, you already have someone in a role. Make sure this role actually reflects what they really do. That's always a nice reality check. Of course, you also have to work with HR, and that's another, or your civil service department, and that's another whole conversation. We could go on for another few hours probably talking about how to navigate that. Sometimes there's a lot of regulations around updating a job description. Sometimes you'll have, let's say, a civil service classification for a certain occupation, and that'll give you the template core description. And then you might be able to add on top of that for the position you're actually recruiting for. So working with HR or your civil service department also can be really important. This is a little bit more rare, but once in a while you'll have a whole new occupation that was never included in your, let's say, the HR job classifications. And I've seen this, for example, with things like data scientist or even public health informaticist, hard word to say. Those are somewhat new job descriptions. And so if it's brand new, then you definitely have to work with civil service agencies and HR to kind of justify that, hey, we have this whole new occupation that doesn't even exist at our agency. and it's a real occupation. We really need to hire people. I've seen this with data modernization, for example, that there's like new roles that just didn't exist in the past, where the whole job is trying to improve the way we use data and integrate different kinds of data together. So that job is not a programmer necessarily. It's not necessarily an epidemiologist. It's actually a separate new thing. So depending on how new the actual occupation is, you may have to kind of go a little deeper. You may even need to reach out to technical support providers to help you with navigating that journey of creating a whole new occupation. So depending on whether it's just a little reboot, a little update to something that already exists, or you're actually creating a whole new occupation that your agency didn't recruit for, depends on how much work you'll have to put in making a good job description.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. The greatest takeaway that I'm kind of gathering from what you just shared, Heather, is that the job descriptions and the accompanying job postings are really meant to be a template, a starting point, and for each agency, each organization to really take it upon themselves to assess what are their unique needs, their priorities, and how they need to tailor the information that they put to really customize their description and posting for a specific role or a set of roles that they may be hiring for at their agency. I think one thing I want to make sure that those that are watching this are aware of is that the Model Job Descriptions Project 2.0, all of the resources are available for free. So anyone essentially that has internet access can access these completely for free. They're downloadable, can take them, adjust them, customize them to your needs. And as of this time that we're recording the video in summer of 2025, we don't have any plans for when these postings would be retired. So they will be available for many years to come. As we are wrapping up, I want to ask one final question for both Heather and Kimberly, and we didn't include this in the prep, but I wanted to ask you to each share maybe one little nugget or one key takeaway that you would like for folks that are watching to keep in mind as they might be starting to poke around and explore these resources. We'll start with Heather and then we'll wrap with Kimberly.
Sure. I just did want to remember to mention one small thing, which is that there's sort of a caveat on all of these, which is we did not include salaries because that is very, very specific, sometimes to geographic location. That was a common question for the first go around. How come you didn't list salaries? Because they're variable by geographic location, by the job level. There's so many different variables. Secondly, that there also are sometimes legal implications about job descriptions. So this is why it's essential to work with HR or civil service agency representatives because, for example, jobs have to comply, job descriptions should comply with things like the Americans with Disabilities Act. You want to make sure that you're making clear what are sort of the physical or what are the actual what are you actually doing physically in the job? We didn't get into that detail in these job descriptions. So again, double check to make sure that everything you're doing matches the requirements. That's important. But basically take home message is that you don't have to start everything from scratch. We do have these resources and there's many ingredients in a good job description, and we're hoping that this is a nice launching point to make things a little bit more efficient and easier for all of the different health departments out there, whether you're hiring or whether you're looking to create kind of a career pathway for people, or even some future goals for people, some new things that you'd want them to learn. Those can all be part of the description in the job. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather. What about you, Kimberly?
Yeah, I think I can just piggyback off of that and just mention throughout this process and also in the development of the 6 new job descriptions, it's very evident to us that every job description has to be tailored for each organization, each community, and your unique needs. And so, like Heather mentioned, we hope that this is a launching pad, gives you a starting point, a foundation to build off of, but we know that what's going to make each job description unique and special is that it actually reflects your organization's mission, culture, values, and the specific needs that you have for that position. So I think it's just very important for folks not to take this and believe that we're saying this is the only way that the grants manager job can be reflected in a community, and understand that we hope that you just use it as a foundation and a template that you can base it off of to really fit the unique needs of your organization. So that's probably one of my biggest takeaways.
Great. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you both for sharing all of this information with our listeners, with our viewers. Just want to make sure that folks know how to access the job descriptions and job postings, so they are available on the Region 5 Public Health Training Center website, which is rvphtc.org. If there are questions about any of the resources, feel free to reach out to us at rvphtc@umich, that's umich.edu. And we wish you all the best of luck as you continue on the recruitment and retention journey to help make sure that we are maintaining an equipped and resilient public health workforce. So thank you all, and best of luck out there.